Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this.
Hi Jason, how are you today?
Good, Filia, how you doing?
I'm good too, thank you.
Welcome to Uncover, guys.
And what are we going to talk about today?
Less prep, more you.
Less prep, more you.
Yeah, so what I mean by that is the less you are prepared for life, the more your true you will show up.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'm like, okay, that triggers me.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, for natural preparers like yourself, right, you need something that everything is all in alignment so you're okay. The reason why we do that is because we need to be in control.
Yeah, perfectionism, right? Control.
Yeah, so we're trying to make sure everything is in order so then we don't get in trouble for something. What that does is it creates a rigidity in our psyche because we can't be ourselves because we're trying to actually show up before we show up.
That is very interesting.
Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So we are trying to show our show, be all prepared before the big day. And when we do that, how do we actually become ourselves? So let's say we've got an interview and we go, oh my God, I've got to do this interview. I've got to get this right. I've got to see what the company's doing. I've got to make sure I have the questions answered. Even though I don't really know what the questions are, I've got to be prepared. So we put all this massive amount of pressure on ourselves and we don't actually really show up sometimes. And we go, oh, I nailed that interview. But why do you think you nailed the interview?
I think it's just because I answered all the questions right. But yeah, it's a very interesting point now.
Well, sure. I don't think it's because you answered the questions right. It's
no, like that's what we think.
Yeah,
but
you're in the room with the other person made you feel comfortable.
And you actually maybe sometimes people would get all the questions right, but they don't have any character.
Yeah. And so what we do is we actually buy on character. We buy on safety. We choose on a feeling, not how smart someone is. So this is the problem that we can have. You can have absolutely charismatic interviewers and interviewees that get the job every time. But are they good at their job?
It's a different question.
Interesting, isn't it? So you look at this and you say, well, for you, Filia, you're getting so much better at this these days. You never really had confidence, did you?
No.
Right? And to show up, you'd be like, oh my God, what's someone going to think of me? Before you show up. So there'd be this high anxiety and all that. And then you get the show up people who just go, I'm showing up. Right? They're charismatic. They know that they're just going to be themselves, and they're more likely to get that interview over you unless the person is really aware who's doing the interviewing. Right? And so if the person's really aware, they'll go, oh, I can smell a rat with this so-called expert. And they'll go, here's the person who doesn't necessarily believe in themselves, but I know I've got honesty, I've got care, I've got dedication, I've got focus, I've got all of these traits that I'd be looking for as an employee. So what I used to do when I was looking for jobs, there was one job, actually two jobs that I didn't get. I needed them both. So I showed up, I didn't show up. I showed up nervous and I screwed them up pretty badly. And then the other ones, I did this just simple process. I imagined myself in the office, working in the office before I arrived. And that's changed everything, because I just imagined myself being there. So I never ever prepped for any more interviews after I did 2 preps, because they didn't work. And I just showed up as me, and I got every single job.
That's amazing. And it's like, with job interviews in particular, my partner is really good with getting jobs as well. It's just always funny, and he's got a lot of confidence in, you know, getting a job, because it's always just worked for him. And he always said to me, you have to interview them as well, because you have to see if you want to work there. It's not about them just accepting you, you have to accept them too.
That's right.
That kind of takes a bit of that pressure off as well.
Exactly. And so when you just show up, you pull the rabbits out of your hat too. Right? You provide inspiration. Right? So, you know, if you go and watch someone, you've been to university, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you see the person just reading from the notes from the lecture hall.
Yeah, I've even had lecturers who did that.
And what do you think?
Oh God, it was the most boring lecture. I never went.
Yeah. And then you get a lecture where you got a bit of joke, a little bit of unpredictability, and that sort of thing. So you just sort of experience someone showing up in a really, really different way.
Yeah, I had a lecturer like that in my last semester. It was hilarious. I loved his lectures. I went to, I think I didn't go once because something else was on, but other than that, I went there because I loved it, and it was so funny every time. So
yeah. So what I mean by this is that if you can show up, and there's more you, and like you and I do these podcasts, and this morning this is our second one right after each other, and that we're recording right now, and you didn't even know what I was going to share right now, did you?
I didn't even know the topic until we started talking. So
and then we have just the one word that we did with the previous one, and then just a little catch cry today. And so what that does for everyone who's listening right now is that the more that you become able to be off the cuff and be yourself, you're not worried about what other people are going to think about what you say. That's why we prep, right?
Yeah.
We are so concerned about what other people are thinking that we actually usually balls it up.
And it makes sense in certain contexts, I guess, you know, because in university settings, for example, if you're giving a presentation and you have to prep for a certain, you know, at least certain things, you have to know what you're talking about. Otherwise, because you will be judged, you will get a grade for it. Otherwise, if you don't have no clue what you're going to talk about, then I don't know how good the grade will be, depending on the presentation.
Right.
So it depends on the context, but in life in general.
Well, if we think about that, Filia, let's say you've got your talk, right? And you know exactly what you're going to say, so you're prepped. You know your content. You know what it looks like. You know what it's going to be. You can still show up, no prep. You can still go, okay, I'm going to show up, be myself. And whatever comes out of my mouth will be a little bit more organic rather than cardboard.
Oh, yeah. Like, you don't want to learn it by heart before.
No, that's right. And the number of times, that's what I used to do when I used to do talks in front of the class. I'd have my little memory things, and I'd just be like, I've got to say it word for word, and I was terrible. So I think what we've got to learn to do, I'm not telling everyone, by the way, for all the preparers like yourself, Filia, to just show up and have nothing there. What I'm saying is, the more that you can be you when you do show up, the more people are going to see more of you. Okay? So it's when you really want to show up. Like, there are people who have amazing expertise in what they do. And they have this ability, they have everything ready, they talk about what they want to talk about. The thing is, they have this ability to organically communicate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So it's like, rather than having it all scripted and just playing a role, really, because if you just read it out and learn it by heart, it's kind of like you're an actor.
That's right. And like, you've had some feedback. There's a few people who have given me feedback about the podcast, about your contribution that you make, and you're not preparing the contribution that you make, are you?
No. No, because most of the time I don't even know what we're going to talk about. So.
That's right, because I'm that no prep show, more you sort of person. So people who are listening right now, I just have a word that we talk about, and then a little bit of info about what that means. About one sentence is basically all it is.
So we've got one word and one sentence of prep per podcast.
Yeah, and so this is what I used to do when I was running meditations in 2008. I would go to this place and I'd have a particular topic. I'd have one word and I'd drive there with the one word and say, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about. And then the audience would help me fill the gaps. Right? So the audience were the people that were actually providing the inspiration for me to share what I wanted to share with the people, with the word that I was sharing and the information that I wanted to share that night. And so you see me, I'm running a 6-week course right now for emotions. And sorry guys, it's already started, so you can't join. Or it'll be well on its way by the time this is up. The thing that around this is that you see all the worksheets are already done except for 1 week. That me showing up is what's going to make it great. Right?
Absolutely. So we prepare these kinds of things, but in the end, it's about how you show up on the day. And also, I think what you just said about the meditations and the audience filling the gap is really nice, because that just makes them feel more included as well, rather than you just reading something out and they're like, I couldn't really relate to that. But if you engage with the audience and take in their perspective as well and build it around that, it just makes them feel more included, and it'll provide more value for them.
Yeah, it certainly does. And we just run a foundations course. It's the first year course for the academy over the weekend, and I had a lady who is co-teaching it with me, and she was brilliant. She did a better job than me with some of the processes, and she actually said to me, I did such a much better job on the Sunday than she did on the Saturday. And she said, we were driving towards the academy where we were sharing it, and we came up with this catch cry that we're talking about right now. And she said, I did so much better on the Sunday than I did on the Saturday, because she was preparing, trying to get as much as she knew, trying to get it all together and making sure it was right and all of that sort of stuff. And then on the Sunday, she just free-flowed. And all the prep was there, so she did all the prep, but she was far less pressured on the Sunday.
I think that's often the case as well, once you kind of realise that it's not expected as well. It's not like you say, oh, you have to have, all this preparation, and then this is how you have to say it. Oftentimes, after the first day, we're like, or the first talk or something, we're thinking, okay, maybe that was a bit too structured, or I was a bit too much in my head, overthinking it. And then the next one, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna, do a bit more flowy.
Yeah. And you never know what, in personal development, you never know what question you're going to get asked. So how do you get prepared for a question you don't know?
You can't.
That's exactly right. So in personal development, if we have if we imagine if you were the scenario person, and what I mean by that is that you're the person who has got to make sure that every question humanly possible around a particular topic is going to be solved by your brain. And then someone throws you a left fielder. What are you going to feel?
Just scared, overwhelmed.
Yeah, and you'll freeze. The thing is, when you show up, when you really show up, you'll have an answer. And I know from a lot of the time when I used to be a healer, that was what I would do. Someone would lie down on my table, they'd close their eyes, and I would look up to the roof, and I'd stare at the roof, and I'd say, help, I don't know what I'm doing. And that was my process to getting information. And then all this information would flood into my brain about what was going on with the person, and I'd tell them, and I'd get it right every single time. And my whole process would show up.
Wow. I think that's really cool as well, to get the information like that. So, and then in that scenario, you can't prep. You don't know what kind of clients are going to walk in.
No.
You know.
So I remember one lady, she had a stomach problem. And because I do stuff very, very differently, I wasn't looking at going, okay, what's the diet, what's all of this, what's all of that. I wanted to know what the stomach problem was psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
And this has happened many times, listeners, so this might be something of a stretch for you. This lady, I saw a tricycle, and that's all I saw. I said, can you tell me about a tricycle when you were little? And she said, oh my God, I remember the day I was tricycling outside and I had an accident and the tricycle went straight in that area of my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, well, that's really interesting. Can I ask you a question? And she said, yes. What happened when you got home? My mum was so angry with me that day because I was out playing in the front of the road when I shouldn't have been. So I got yelled at.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all my fault. The statement was sitting in her tummy for all of those years, and it became a problem. And once we acknowledged that that was sitting in her body, her stomach problem didn't exist anymore, and she had no problems after that. And she got blown away because how can you fix something? And she was trying to get this fixed by everybody else. She came to me and I was the person, that little magic weapon that would find something completely left field that had nothing to do with your diet and any of those sorts of things. That had to do with psychology, that I had no idea what it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what was intriguing with the work that I would do as a healer. I would find something out of the ballpark,
mm-hmm.
and then the body would fix itself.
Yeah.
And so I've learnt to not show up with a prepared notes, because the body doesn't necessarily work that way. So I used to fix frozen shoulders that couldn't be fixed by physios, and I'd have them putting their arm up above their head, well above their head in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be doing all the techniques that they would do, but I'd actually focus on the emotion. And you can't prep for that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to show up. And when it comes to personal development, the thing that a client needs is for you to show up in all your glory, which is nervous, concerned, wondering whether you're good enough, accepting all of those things that you're going to be feeling that way,
mm-hmm.
and regulating those things while you're helping.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Because I think and that relates to what we do in the academy. So with our certification, we do everyone does 50 hours of mentoring. And I remember when I first started the mentoring, I was so nervous, and I was so thinking the whole time, how can I use a certain technique? Which one should I use? Oh my God. And sometimes the person just wanted to talk, and I realized at some point, I don't need to use them every single time. Sometimes it's really they just want someone to listen. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, oh wow, this is works really well with this technique that I know, so maybe let's give this one a go and work with that. Yeah. So just becoming a bit more less rigid,
yeah,
and less concerned with, okay, I have to do this, but just kind of letting it flow, because then the sessions get better as well.
Yeah, I think instead of being a rock, being the river.
Mm-hmm.
The river can wind its way around the rock, but the rock stays where it is.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where you need to be a rock,
mm-hmm.
right? And that, what I mean by that is being clear with what is right for you to do in your life, have boundaries and have clarity. That you can still show up and be the rock and be clear.
Mm-hmm.
And to be the river of expression, of who you are. Things are going to change. Every now and then you're going to go down a waterfall, every now and then the water's going to get stagnated and you're going to feel like you're stuck. And every now and then the water, there'll be so much rain it will release and it's gushing. Sometimes the water will, be empty and there's hardly any water running down the river. That's life. But if we're prepared for that, how can you be prepared for the way the weather is in Australia especially? You can't.
Like, 2 years ago we had bushfires at this time, or almost starting, I guess, and now it's freezing.
Everyone is complaining about the rain, and no one would be complaining about the rain right now if it was 2 years ago, would they?
Nah, because we had a massive drought. Now we don't have that so much anymore. It feels like it's a different part of the cycle now.
Yeah, so, but you can't be prepared for it.
No.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to get ready for the Australian summer. You don't know what the Australian summer's going to look like. And it's the same with life. So if we can show up more and adapt to life's curveballs, we're going to be more calm. Because at the end of the day, you can't be prepared for every single scenario that's going to happen in your life. Right? So I love people who are really prepared for life and organised and that sort of thing, because it's not my magic. Right? I love that. The thing that they struggle with is that ability to go somewhere where it's untrodden territory. Right? They go, no, let's stay on that same path. Right? And stay on that same path because it's normal. There's not snakes over in the bush over there. So we've got to know that if we can be prepared for the unprepared, then when the unprepared comes, we can adapt, and that means that we have to show up sometimes not ready for everything that's in store for the day.
Is there any certain way that you would recommend starting doing this? Asking for a friend, of course.
Just asking for a friend. Look, I think even something simple. Do you know what we do? When we go for our walk, we walk along the same path.
I do that.
Go in reverse.
Yeah, I do that sometimes too.
Go the other way.
Or sometimes on the other side of the road.
Yeah, well, that's big.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a rebel. So
just try to do some new things. Learn some new things. Learn new things. Keep learning. I think that's the best way that we can be, is not get stuck on being the expert. Keep trying something new every week or every couple of weeks. So then we're just keeping ourselves on our toes. And then the moment we're learning in newness, then we can't be prepared, can we?
No.
Right? So you keep getting thrown left fielders by me every week, don't you?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what we're doing this week. We'll see.
Yeah. And so you're getting used to that, and it's getting easier, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. In the beginning, I was always just overwhelmed. Now it's much easier.
Yeah, because I'm not trying to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm just showing you, here's this is what we're doing this week. This is what we need to do. Change your plans, right? Because we're in a business that's actually, we have a business that's changeable. So we can move things very, very quickly, not like big corporations where you have to have meetings to make sure that we're all in alignment to do the thing that we're meant to do.
Yeah, for sure. For us, it's more like, I do have a calendar, but it's a flexible one.
Yeah.
And if things change, I just put some white out over it, and I'm like, this is what I actually do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think, guys, if you're needing control, then you're not going to be able to get this podcast well, right? If you're really needing control, so you've got to make sure that if you're wanting life to be a certain way, life's going to give you a curveball. So one thing that you can do is make sure you just hang out and learn to be more yourself. Let people in on what's going on in your head. That's the best way to do it. Like, let people know what's going on in your world. I'm not saying to overshare. Oversharers are a little bit tough, right?
Yeah.
We have some oversharers that we know about, and they're hard work. So I'm not saying overshare. I'm just letting yourself become more authentic in the way that you show up to the world, which means working on your vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Right? The more able you are to express your vulnerabilities, the more able you are to handle this world the way it is.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah. No, I think we need to learn it because it's not a skill we learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're at school and we're taught to prep. Study for that test. Get that right mark.
Yeah.
Right? And you're an A-grade student, right?
Yep.
Aren't you?
Yeah. I just feel like the schooling system I was in was very competitive. So,
Yeah. But if you got the third level A, you were the top level A, how did you feel?
At university was, for example, like that's what I always think about. Like I got a test back and I had a high distinction. I got 90% right, and the only thing I could think of, like, what about the other 10%?
Yeah.
So.
And you're talking about a person who got a pass. Talking to a person who got a pass and just going, oh, I got through that. I got through that. I don't have to do that unit again. Mm-hmm. That would be my head. I got through that unit, and you're like, how did I miss that 10%? So you see the different level of pressure?
Yeah, for sure.
There was something that you don't know about me, is that every time I would do a test, no matter how I prepared, it didn't matter. I would freeze.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember one unit that I had, it was elements of statistics, and it was a 3-hour exam, and I was prepared. I loved the elements. I loved the statistics. It was one of my favourite units. So I loved doing all the work, and then I showed up to the exam and it all looked like it was in Japanese. So for the first hour, I was hyperventilating in the toilet. And then I was just like, I sat on the toilet and went, all right, well, your first ever exam at university, you failed and you thought you were going to get this one right.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went back to my desk and everything turned into English. And I started just as fast as I can writing as many answers as I could down. I got a credit.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, really good, because I missed, it was out of 80 and I had 20 marks I didn't actually get because I missed one whole question. Mm-hmm. It was only because I I spent an hour in the toilet hyperventilating. So sometimes we can, even when we show up, we can actually shit ourselves and not show up and be so scared that nothing that we see in front of us is actually legible or sensible for us. Have you experienced that at all?
Yeah.
In life, probably not at uni, but in life?
Oh, actually, I did. I did have at school, like with my final exams, it was like my biology exam, and there was one. So you basically got 3 exams put in front of you, and you had to choose 2 of them that you'd do, and you had, I think, maybe 5 hours or something to do them, so it was really long. And so I was going along doing it, and had not studied one particular topic because I just hated it. I was like, if that's in any of them, I won't do it. So that was in one of them, so that one was out. But the other 2, one was evolution and the other one was genetics, and I really enjoyed both of those topics. And then in the genetics one, I completely went blank with these big questions that gave like a lot of points, and I could not figure it out, and I started panicking, and I felt like I was losing all the other things that I remembered. So I thought, okay, let me do the other questions first, the ones that I'm quite sure about, so, and then go back to that one at the end. And then at the end, I think I had 20 minutes left, and it was a long question. So, and then all of a sudden I had this oh my God, now I know. And I just wrote as much as I could, like you said, just as quickly as I could. And I actually got a really good grade at the end. That was actually my best finals. Yeah, because, wow. And I was like, wow, if that hadn't happened, it would not have been looking that good.
Yeah, so I wonder what happens in our brain that allows us to release the pressure that we put on ourselves. Which is not allowing us to show up, like whether we're going to fail, whether we're not good enough, all of those things that come into our head that don't allow us to show up in our best way, right? And I think we need to learn to figure out what those things are. Where is our lack of show up, right? And you had that experience and then you snapped out of it. And I think at any point in time, we can all snap out of it. But we just don't know what we're snapping out of half the time.
I think it was more for, it was something like, I'm going to fail, like I'm not going to be good at this. But then like doing the things where I actually knew the answers kind of helped then to gain back that confidence of like, I did study really hard and I actually do know that, and then it just kind of came back. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? So what would you suggest that you do, like to do right now for showing up, like from the experiences that you've had with me? Like what's changed for you that's allowed you to become a lot more comfortable?
I think it's like slowly letting go of controlling everything, especially other people and conversations, because like I can't control what you're gonna do. I can't control what you're gonna say on this podcast, even if I wanted it to go into a particular direction. Like I can't, like I can maybe move the conversation into that direction, but what you're going to say might not be the same what I agree with. So I think just, especially talking to other people, like just going more with the flow. And then depending on the situation, obviously, like being prepared for tests and presentations and that, but also allowing yourself to take that pressure off a little bit, and just, like you say, I actually just be you and engage with the audience. I think that makes a big difference as well for especially presentations in this case. Yeah,
for sure. And I think that's what we need to remind ourselves, is that the only person that's really in our own way is our own thoughts and our feelings about ourselves, right? It's really, because if you think about where we're all at in human psychology, what we will do is we'll be so concerned about ourselves and worried about ourselves. Do you think everyone else is doing the same thing?
Yeah.
So if you remind yourself that way, that everyone else is probably more worried about themselves than worried about what you're going to say, then you'll actually be a little bit more comfortable and a lot more calm in your own world. There are certain things, you can be in environments where you go and hang around a whole bunch of experts and feel like the biggest dipshit, right? There's a guy who showed up for the weekend seminar, and it was his first day in the academy. So he joined on the Friday and he started the course on the Saturday. So he was intimidated. And but he showed up and he got a lot of care and a lot of support on that weekend, which shows the type of person he could become if he puts the effort in. Because he showed up straight away. So I think in environments where we feel like we're not the expert, or we don't know everything, those environments can be a little bit scary. It's like going to karate and you're the white belt, and then you got to go in front of everyone and get your grading. That was terrifying for me.
Yeah.
I remember the sensei going, "Hey Jason, are you going to go for your grading?" I was like, "I'm not ready." He's like, "Jason, I guarantee you will pass. You will not fail. I will pass you. Are you comfortable showing up to the grading now?" I was like, okay. Because I hadn't done enough on my check boxes, because you have a certain number of things, classes you have to go to, and I'd only gone to 4 classes, and there were 8 classes you need to go to, so I really wasn't ready to show up. And he said, "You're ready, go." And then I showed up, and he's done that a few times with me. "You're ready, go," when I haven't ticked all the boxes, and I don't like doing that. I guess that's where I'm a bit like you. I'm like, I'd like to show up to all of my classes so then I can show up. This last one, he said, "You need to tick all the boxes." I'm like, good.
I'll do that.
I'll do that, and then I'll show up to the...
It's kind of in relation to wanting to be perfect as well, right? And then just like, which is something that I'm definitely still working on very hard as well. And just realising that you can't be. There's no such thing, really.
Well, I think the thing that all of us are frightened of about just showing up and bringing your best you forward is humiliation. That's why we prep. Right? So we don't want to be humiliated in front of others.
Yeah.
And I know what that's like. Year 6, I got laughed at in front of the class, so I spent year 7 and year 12 going to sick bay, so I never did a talk in front of the class ever again. It's through high school and college. I was so humiliated, and I think that's where we get really stuck. We've got this massive fear that someone's going to laugh at us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Australian culture, it's one of the favourite things to laugh at others, especially stupid things that people do. Right? So there's a game of cricket for people who don't know Australian sport. It's a very long game, and if someone gets hit in the balls, everyone laughs. And it's the most painful thing to have happen, a cricket ball right in the balls, and everyone thinks it's the most hilarious thing in the world. Laughs at the poor person's pain. Awful. But it's one of those things. Humiliation is what we have to be prepared to experience sometimes, and sometimes that can happen anyway, no matter whether you're prepared or not, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in any setting, like you can see that more so now with all the online social media and stuff, you know, that you've got all the people, the keyboard warriors, and you know, everyone
go at you for whatever you believe in. And I think we need to be prepared to, you know, people love to do that right now. People have a go at you for whatever it is that you're doing, and we need to learn to accept that people are not going to like us and want to have a go at us and tell us we're wrong and that sort of thing, and be prepared for that.
That's really, really cool. So that's less prep, more you.
Yeah, less prep, more you guys. And so I'm not saying not prepare for anything. I'm just saying when you do show up, be organic, be yourself, and people will like you far more when you're actually being the true person you're always meant to be. Inside of each and every one of you listeners is a magical human being, and you're probably hiding it more than you realise. Tiana, who was teaching with me on the weekend, she was getting so much praise, and every time she got the praise, she looked down at her feet. She was not coping with the amount of praise that she was getting, simply because she was doing a great job, and that's what we want, right? That you know, sometimes we don't know how to deal with the compliments, especially for people who have low self-esteem. So we just got to be prepared to be unprepared, to be able to adapt, do what we can, and actually work on our stuff that is actually holding us back from our greatness. Because each and every one of us, as I said, we have this shining light inside. If we can just be ourselves, we'll start to uncover it, and people will accept us or not. And that's not we can't force everyone to like us.
What's the saying? Like, what other people think of you is none of your business? Yeah,
that's right. So we've got to remind ourselves that, you know, no matter what we do, no matter what we show up, no matter how we show up, people are going to be find difficult things in us. People are going to find great things. And it's really what we do that we bring to the table that really matters. And at the end of the day, we get to learn to become ourselves more. Now, how do you do that? How do you become more of yourself? That's where we come in, guys. It's personal development, right? Anya always says this, my wife, she always says you can only know information and life at the end of your own horizon. So if you're only thinking with your own thoughts and your own feelings and your own world, how are you going to get any further in life? You need to have someone else's head to bounce off, right? So that's where we have to develop. There's so much more in us that we don't know. And you found that with doing the work in the academy, haven't you?
For sure, yeah. You're like, I never knew this a few years ago. Now I know. So yeah.
Yeah, so it gives us a sense, and that's the reason why we're sharing this podcast, guys, is that to give you that sense. Because one thing I know is you will not die with the house in your grave. You will not die with the car that you've driven. You will not die with the clothes that you wear. You will die with the transformation and change that you've made in your heart. And that is the only thing you take home with you when we go from this planet. So that's why I think you know, we don't put personal development as a necessity in life, as a spend. The people who do, they know why. I remember Cody, your partner, saying, "Oh, this is just essential. I would never not spend money on myself to help me grow. It's like, it's what I have to do." So he's in the right place. He knows exactly how important personal development and growth is for him. Thanks, Filia, for hanging out with me today. No prep, more you. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you for helping me do this.
All right. Have an awesome day, guys.
See you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate you, and we really appreciate your time, because time is so valuable. What we'd love you guys to do, if you like this podcast, if you could share it with your friends, and also our website address for the podcast is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com. Our website is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademy.com. We have a free Facebook group called Wellness Leadership Evolution, so search for that. I'd love it if you could add me as a friend on Facebook. I don't buy it, so add me as a friend. And if you want some help and you would really like some support from us in the Academy, jump in. We have a process. You can do a break-in call to connect in with us. We do small courses. We have lots of things that we share. So we'd love the opportunity to give you a chance to change your life and turn it into a free one. You are one transformation away from change. Come and catch up.